Hey guys, Adam Menner here, Varsity House Gym. So one of the questions that I see a lot of from different athletes or working with coaches is how to progress your plyometric exercises, right? And plyometrics are kind of a dicey subject, just in the sense of where do you fit them in, what plyometrics do you use, right? You don't necessarily want to just pick a random exercise and start performing that exercise. You might see a hurdle on the ground, an individual is doing a single leg hurdle hop to try to get over that hurdle. Great, that's a plyometric exercise, but where is that individual? Where are they in their training life cycle, right? And you have to remember, what is the end goal? What's the main adaptation that you're trying to train? If it's true speed and performance, well, then you have to understand the origin of what dictates where you are in that particular training program. And ground contact time is the universal equalizer for where everything stems from. Here's what I mean. In earlier phases of the sprint, during acceleration, I spend more time on the ground. We know that. Why? Because of my body angle, right? My torso is forward, my shin is dropped, right? And I'm pushing off violently behind my frame as I accelerate. So that's longer ground contact times. That's where I'm going to generate more force, and the angle of my body, right, will dictate, again, the kinematic forces that I'm experiencing. Now, subsequently, with your plyometric exercises, they also have to match where you are in that program, right? If you were to just come in and work with me, I'd had you put on the line. Today, we're going to do 20 sprints. We're going to do some single leg cone jumps. We're going to do lunges. In theory, that may be a good workout. But how does that workout sequence upon the next? How do you build upon each sequence? And that is ground contact time. That is your great equalizer for building a great speed program. So looking here, what we like to focus on when again, progressing our plyometric exercises is I'm looking at ground contact time, how much force in the ground. So I want slower base plyometrics with greater ranges of motion in earlier phases of acceleration. So if I'm here, this is a greater range of motion. So one of the exercises we like to use is a simple, what's called drop jump. My back toe is in the ground, my foot is up. I'm gonna explode off the ground as high as I can, right? Because again, I'm trying to overcome gravity at that 90-degree angle, representing what's happening there in the sprint. Now, as I begin to progress, I might pick a different plyometric exercise that again is less range of motion. So I might pick a subsequent power exercise that I might do a little bit of a bounder. So now if I'm here, if I come back to the line, now our sprints are about 15 to 20 yards. Now I'm gonna get a little bit more extension. I might do a single leg bounder that's less ground contact time, where I get, again, less range of motion. And when we look at, that's from an intensive standpoint, but when we look at our extensive plyometrics, which means, again, lower amplitude, more reps, more volume, because intensive in terms of complete output, less volume, higher intensity, extensive plyometrics begin to diminish. Because in earlier phases, during longer ground contact times, we're working on more ankle pop variations, we're looking on more side to sides, we're looking at different hurdle hop variations because we're trying to build, again, all the tissue to strengthen the joint and tendons, again, to prepare ourselves for that sprint. So now we have our sprint. During that earlier phase of acceleration, we know we need more extensive plyos and we need greater ranges of motion for our intensive power work. As we begin to progress, right now we're running a little bit more upright. As we're running a little bit more upright, now we do what we just did with our single leg hurdle hops. We get rid of our extensive plyos. Now, as we transition to that max velocity, we get rid of our extensive plyos, and now the jumps that we want to use are going to be bilateral. Why? Shortest range of motion, most output, and it matches the force velocity curve, which is extremely important. So now I might go to a bilateral hop. So now I'm here where I'm spending the least amount of time on the ground, covering the most distance and generating the most force. So the three keys are ground contact time, longer ground contact times and earlier acceleration, extensive plyos, greater ranges of motion. As you progress, less extensive plyos, less range of motion in your sprint, and more bilateral, less ground contact time based intensive jumps.